Hey guys, it's Jake here with eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at, and I'm going to show you how to install the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system with Coachlink on our 2024 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited. Your 5 main components are going to be your tow bar, which will connect your RV to your Jeep, your base plate, which is a physical connection that the tow bar connects to, your supplemental braking system, which helps the Jeep to come to a safe and slow stop behind the motorhome, your diode wiring kit, which is going to transfer the lighting signals from the back of your motorhome to the back of your Jeep, and then finally your safety cables. This is going to come into play in an unlikely disconnect. If the tow bar were to ever come disconnected from the Jeep, those safety cables are going to kick in and keep the Jeep behind you so that you can get over to the side of the road and come to a safe and slow stop. Now the way this kit is going to work is it's going to take an air signal from your coach and apply the brakes on the inside of your Jeep while you're flat towing it down the road. If your coach does not have air brakes, I would look into a system like the Stay and Play Duo from Demco. That is designed for coaches with hydraulic brakes. Now the breakaway switch is also going to come with this kit. It is designed in an unlikely disconnect. If the tow bar were to ever come disconnected from the base plate, this plunger will be pulled, and that is going to apply the brakes on the inside of the Jeep, bringing the Jeep to a safe and controlled stop so that you can get out and assess the situation. Main operating unit, which is this unit right here, is going to be the main controls of the system itself. It's going to take the air pressure from the motorhome and then distribute it inside to the brake cylinder that's mounted on our brake pedal inside of our Jeep. For this particular part of the install, you can mount this pretty much wherever you want, wherever it'll fit, and that it's in a safe place. It is designed to be out in the engine bay so it can handle the elements. If there's any water or heat that gets in here, this is going to stand up to it. Now what a lot of people have done is they have mounted this under the driver's seat. I prefer it to be out in the engine bay with the rest of the working components of the engine, but some people like to put it under there so that it's safe and sound underneath the footwell. The thing is, you're going to have to route the same amount of hoses in or out, whether this unit is outside or inside the vehicle. So you really don't save a whole lot of labor that way. I prefer it to be out here because if you ever have any problems with a little air leak or a wire has gone bad or something like that, because things happen, I have it right here in front of me and I can check everything. I can check these 2 hoses for air leaks. I can check the check valves. I can look at all that stuff and it's right in front of me and I don't have to remove my driver's seat every time I need to do that. Now underneath the floorboard of our driver's side, you can see some more of our components. This is going to be the brake cylinder that's going to apply the brakes by using that air pressure. It has a little cable that is tied to the firewall that will pull on that cable and depress the brakes when you depress the brakes in the coach. So when the coach is applying its air brakes, it's going to apply the brakes in our Jeep too. Now the last component in our kit is going to be the Coachlink. This system is designed to help you see whether or not the braking system is working correctly on your vehicle. The biggest difference between this and the 3 LED kit that comes in the normal kit, the non-Coachlink kit, is that this monitor is going to be inside of your coach, sitting right here with you so that you can look down, see the 3 LEDs light up, and know that your system's working properly. The other thing that it's going to do is it'll tell you whether or not it's not working properly. So if you hit your brakes and those 3 LED lights stay on, that means something in the vehicle is sticking and you might be dragging the vehicle behind you. So it helps with the good and the bad to be able to tell you that the system is working correctly. I like having this monitor inside the coach so that it's one less screen that you have to look at. There is a buzzing feature on it so that if you want it to buzz every time you hit the brakes, I personally think that's a little annoying, but you can, at least as long as you start to take off on the road, you can turn that on, make sure it's working properly, and then flip it back off. Now, one of the big components with this kit is whether or not your coach is prepped for air brakes on the back of the coach. You want to look for a little air fitting on the back of the coach. Typically, it's going to be on a Spartan chassis coach or a Freightliner chassis coach. This chassis for this coach is a Freightliner. So don't be deceived if it's not prepped for it. Ours was not, so you will have to mount up a tank and tap into your airlines on your coach if it is not prepped. It's just one thing you have to check. You can typically check in your owner's manual to see if it's prepped or not, but it's just as easy to go to your back of the coach and look for that air chuck. As far as the installation goes, I'd say probably the most difficult part about this is going to be mounting all of those components that we just showed you. But hopefully with this video, you're able to see all the different places that we put them, because those are the best places that I found to mount all those things up. If you're able to do that, then all it is running some hoses and making those connections. But with that being said, let's go ahead and take it inside and show you how we did it. To begin our installation, we're gonna have to get our main components of this kit installed. There's gonna be 6 main components. First off, it's gonna be the main operating unit. You're gonna have to find somewhere, either under the hood, sometimes people put them under the seat, somewhere to mount that. You'll have your breakaway switch, which is gonna mount down on our bumper. We'll have to wait on that because our bumper is off right now from installing our base plate. Then you're gonna have the reed module for our Coachlink, which is gonna go in the footwell of our Jeep. The brake cylinder, which is gonna go in the footwell of our Jeep on the driver's side, both of those do. The 5th thing is gonna be the monitor for the Coachlink. That goes in the coach. That's super easy. That just gets plugged into a 12-volt outlet. And then finally, you're gonna have the components that get installed on the motorhome side. So you're gonna have a little air tank and some hoses that we're gonna have to run in order to get air to the back of the coach. The main operating unit, we decided to mount it up on top of our fuse panel here. We just have these 2 tabs that pull this lid off. And this has always worked out really nice for us, because if they ever have to get in the fuse panel, we're gonna have 2 air lines hanging out here and 1 vacuum line, and then these wires. What I'll do is I'll leave these wires long enough, leave enough slack in these air lines so that if they need to get in their fuse panel, they can lift up, check their fuses, and then put this back down. And we accomplish this by drilling 8 holes in the top of our fuse panel. There's gonna be 4 in the sides and 4 in the bottom, and you just kind of stitch a zip tie through there, tie it off to the holes in the operating unit itself, and this always holds it on really, really well. If you look closely, I filled each of the holes in with a little bit of silicone and then just took my finger and wiped off the excess. For our brake cylinder, that is going to go in the footwell, like we said earlier. It's going to attach to the brake pedal, and it is going to be the physical pulling action on the brake pedal. You want to take the brake cylinder, mount it up to your pedal. You want it high enough to where your foot's not going to hit it when you hit the brake naturally. And then you want to anchor it to the firewall. And if you anchor it in the same place that we did, which is right above that little support nib on our carpeting, you shouldn't have any problems with it hitting any components on the outside in the engine bay. You just want to be careful. Don't put it too high or too far to the left or right of where I have it, because there are some important components out there. You'll just take the 3 self-tapping screws that comes in your kit, put the 2 on the outside, and then save the center one for when you're tightening your cable. When you're tightening the cable tension, you want to make sure that there's just the slightest bit of slack so that you're not setting off the reed switch that is on the brake cylinder itself. You want to make sure that there's just a little bit there, and the way that you can do that is tighten down your cable with the Allen key, and then come back, test it, and you may have to come back and loosen it up a little bit. Now that we've got those 2 components installed, we're going to take our bumper, put it back up in place. We left the bumper off when we did the base plate because it gave us a little bit more room to work for running wires and stuff like that. But now it's time to put it back on so we can get our breakaway switch and our airline fitting mounted up on the front of it. Now we've got our 4-pole pulled through here, and I was kind of scoping out the situation, and I was going to use this for the breakaway switch, but after I folded it into a 90-degree angle, and it just stuck out a little too far for my liking. So what I did was I drilled out this hole just a little bit. I used a step bit, ended up only having to go 1 step. I'm going to mount it on this bolt that's holding on part of our bracket. That'll give it a nice stout place to pull if it were to ever need to be trimmed. We'll put this nut back on, and this will keep it nice and hidden back behind the front of our bumper. It'll look a lot better. We'll get this tightened back down. To get our air fitting in place, you're going to get it on this bracket. That's how it's going to come in the kit. You'll have the air fitting sticking out the side of it here. What you can do is you can mount that up somewhere here if you wanted it in a different place, and if you don't have the same bracketry that we have. This bracket came with our base plate, and it has a perfect little hole there for our to replace that bracket. So what we're going to do is we'll take the washer that was included, slide that over, slide this through our hole, and then thread this back on. Then we'll take a adjustable wrench and an 11mm and tighten this back down. For our airline to go through the plastic, we could easily just run the airline around, go through this, because our operating unit is on the passenger side. I don't think that looks very clean, so I'm gonna drill a hole up through the plastic here, and that way I can run it through and it'll look a lot cleaner. So I'm on the inside of this plastic with a step bit. I'm just gonna match this up, make sure I got enough room to make a nice gentle curve. With all our fittings in place, we can start running our airline tubing. You're gonna have two different airlines you'll have to run. We'll have one from this fitting on the front of our bumper up to the operating unit, and then one from the operating unit inside to the brake cylinder. I'm gonna go ahead and run those, and we'll come back and show you the route that I took in order to do it. The way that we ended up running our airline and our wiring for our breakaway switch is we ran them through the plastic skid plate. We tied them together. Now once you get up here, we just kind of fish wired the airline tube with the black and orange wires. Once you get up here, you're gonna have to extend the black and orange wire. You can see there I got two butt connectors. You have to extend those. We extended them with a black and white wire, so the white wire is our new orange. And we came over. I like to tape it. If you see it down in here, I like to tape it when it runs through here. It just makes it look a lot cleaner. And then you can stop the tape here, but you can see our airline, our white wire, and our black wire. The black wire from our breakaway switch is going to get connected to one of the two black wires coming out of our operating unit. The other black wire is going to come down and get grounded to this factory ground. You'll have to put a ring terminal on the end, take this nut off with a 10mm socket, and then put that ring terminal on. The white wire will get tied in with the brown wire, so it'll be your orange from the breakaway switch. Tie that in with the brown wire, put your fuse holder on. Now this is ready to connect to the battery. The brown wire we ran across just using these clips that hold this information plastic panel in, ran it across. We tied it off to our airline, but the airline coming from our bumper is going to go into the air in, because we're getting air from the motorhome going into the operating unit. Then we'll have another airline going out over to the driver's side and in through the firewall. There's a little grommet you can see here in our firewall. All I did was take a 1/2-inch drill bit, drill a hole big enough to fit the airline tube and the brown wire, and then you'll also need to run a ground wire in, which we have grounded right here on another factory ground. Now from our grommet on the inside of our driver footwell, you want to connect our airline into the top of our brake cylinder. And when you're pushing in these airlines, you want to make sure that you get a nice straight cut and that you push in until the airline kind of clicks inside of the fitting. Now to make our connections in the footwell of our Jeep for our wiring, we're going to have our Coachlink that we'll have to connect. We'll have to connect to the reed switch on the back of our brake cylinder. And so for those wires, we're also going to have the ground wire, which is a white wire coming in from the outside, and the brown wire. So those connections are going to be the red wire from our Coachlink will connect to the blue wire of our reed switch. The brown wire we ran inside will go to the violet wire on the reed switch. And then the two white wires will connect, the white wire for our ground and the white wire that is connected to our Coachlink. Once we've got that wiring wrapped up, we need to get our vacuum line taken care of. You're going to have to make these two items. You're going to have a small section of airline hose, and then you're going to put the black side into the short piece. This section is going to go on our operating unit. And then this piece, you want to have the black side facing out, then a short piece of airline tubing, and then your T-fitting. This piece we're going to tie in right here. So we'll have to disconnect this factory clip. We'll just peel back on these clips, and you want to pull that red tab off. That's what's locking it in place there. Just like that. With that out, we'll pull this out, and now we need to make a cut along here somewhere. We can see that our fitting stops here. So what I can do is I can cut it about here, and then I'm going to have to cut another section off a little bit larger here to be able to fit that piece in there. So this is going to have to go in line just like this. Now we'll just take some airline tubing cutters. If you don't have any of these, you can typically just use a razor blade, but we're going to cut that off. We'll save that piece. And then this piece, I'm just going to pull this down and cut it where the tube straightens out a little bit. Now the little section we just cut off there, you'll want to heat this up with a heat gun. You do have to do it very, very quick. Heat it up with a heat gun, then heat up the inside with a heat gun, and then slide it over our T-fitting. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other end. Just need to pull some of this jacketing back. We're going to heat up this end here. So here we put a little bit longer piece in there just so it's more of a relaxed fit. Slide this factory fitting back in and clip it in place. Now from the top of the T, we ran our hose, our vacuum line up and over. We just zip tied it along our airline tube. And then you want to cut it back short enough to where when you put your piece on the end here, try to get that on all the way. Then we'll take the vacuum line and put it on the white side of that check valve. With everything connected up on our system, we can connect our fuse holder. We're not going to have the fuse in it when we make this connection, because if you just barely tap the positive terminal, you could pop that fuse, and chances are you probably don't have one at home, so you'd kind of be out of luck. Take this off, slide our ring terminal in there, and then put the nut back on. Once we get that in place, we can stick our fuse in. Now once we get everything buttoned up on our vehicle side of the installation, we're going to hop over to the motorhome and get that side done. Now on our coach side, there's a couple of things we're going to have to install. First off, we're going to have to install a auxiliary air tank that's going to help regulate the amount of pressure coming back to our air chuck here at the back of the coach. The other two things that we're going to have to install are going to be a T-fitting on our main air supply line, which is going to be the big fitting in your kit, and then we're going to have to tap into the metered air, which is going to help to supply it to the back of the coach. Then we're going to have a line run from that tank that we're going to install all the way back here to the back. And we're back here underneath our coach. Now if you're doing this at home, you may want to put your hydraulic jacks up, give yourself a little bit of room because it's very, very tight under here. What you'll see up here is there's going to be a lime green line up there that you see. That is your main supply line. So what you need to do, you can see our T-fitting right here. We're going to have to cut it in half, put this big T-fitting in, and then you'll have your main supply line coming out over there, and you're going to come in the side of our air tank with this regulator on it. And then up here, you'll see this is going to be our metered air. And you can tell that it is because it's going into this distribution box, but it's coming from this main supply up here. So you see it coming down and around and into this distribution box. We'll have to put another T-fitting in there, run that line out. I just went over top of this frame bracket, and then that one's going to get tied into the other regulator. And then this little elbow fitting right here, this 90-degree, that is what's going to go back to the back of the coach. So we just ran an air line out of it, ran it up and over, and then followed it along existing wiring all the way to the back of the coach. For mounting your air tank that comes in your kit, that's this black tank here, there's a couple different options. You will have hardware that comes in the kit. You can drill holes if you're feeling up to it to be able to use that hardware. What I always try to do is I try to find either existing holes that match up to the hole pattern on this bracket. That's why there's so many different types of holes. Or you can use existing hardware. So these two bolts were originally holding this bracket on for our distribution box. All I did was just take the nuts off of both of them, or take the nut off both of them, and then slide our tank up onto it, and then replace the nuts. And like I said, following your existing wiring, this is our air line going to the back. We just kind of looped it in, tied it to any zip tie or wiring when we could. And what I did was, because we didn't have a whole lot of room on the passenger side of the coach, because this is all very, very warm over here because the engine's right here, we went over top to the passenger side where we found a little bit more space away from the engine to tie it to existing wiring. Now, I chose to mount this on the passenger side of our vehicle. You can mount it on the driver's side, whichever. It really depends on, in my personal preference, it depends on where you mounted up your air chuck on the front of your vehicle. So our air chuck is on the passenger side of our Jeep, so I mounted it on the passenger side of the motorhome. This is just going to give you a straight shot from the coiled air line that comes in your kit, from this fitting to the fitting on the Jeep. You don't have to worry about crisscrossing. I like to try to keep most of the stuff on the same side if I can. Our electric is also going to be on the same side, so we'll have our air line and our wiring going straight to our Jeep. Now what we need to do for the motorhome side of it, what you want to do is you want to start your coach, let the air pressure build up on the inside of the coach, and then lay that back down underneath your coach and spray the fittings. Each spot, wherever we cut it, you want to spray those fittings to make sure you don't have any air leaks, and then we're ready to hook up to our vehicle. Now that I've checked all those connections that we made for any leaks, we did not have any. You just want to take some soapy water, charge up your system, spray those connections, and make sure that you don't have any large bubbles forming. Now that that's done, we can go start the coach and test out our system. So hopefully this video helped you decide whether or not the Demco Air Force One supplemental braking system with Coachlink is right for you and your 2024 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited.